Thank you for joining me for another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, and I'm here at the News Forum where all voices matter. With electric vehicles continuing their drive to dominance, what is their future in Canada? And what does that mean for the province of Alberta and generally for the Canadian economy? Joining me to discuss is Clinton DeVoe. He is an entrepreneur and international distributor. And we also have Dr. Narayan Carr, who is professor of engineering at the University of Windsor and a Canada Research Chair on electric vehicles. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Carr,
Thank you for having me.
For sure. And if you don't mind, Dr. Carr, we might start with you. From your perspective, how are electric vehicles doing in Canada at present?
We can see that gasoline vehicles in general, their performance and efficiency have improved significantly over the last few decades. But our governments, policymakers, automakers, they all see the benefits of having electric vehicles. So although there are challenges right there, we are not there yet, but there is a huge push there, and we will see that in the coming days, more and more electric vehicles on the road.
And Clinton DeVoe, what's your perspective on this?
I think Canada has a long way to go. However, I think a lot of those decisions will be made through the global market. So we know, for example, that a number of auto manufacturers have announced in the last couple of months that they're going to an all-electric future. So what that means is we'll see more and more of those electric vehicles showing up in our local showrooms, in our communities, and so on and so forth.
So is that the future trend, Clinton? Do you see an increasing market, urban areas, rural areas, Ontario, Alberta? What's the mix as you see it?
Yeah, so what I believe we're going to see happen is that over the next 3 to 4 years, there'll be a huge push for electric vehicles throughout Canada. And so an example of that would be, like if we look at some of the energy companies, without sort of picking favorites, but some of them have already unveiled a national charging network from Nova Scotia to British Columbia. So as we see more and more of that infrastructure take place, that will encourage more people to move into that direction, especially considering some of the big companies out there, your General Motors, your Volkswagen, your Fords, people like that. As they go into that direction, consumers will essentially have no choice but to pick between various electric vehicles as they move away from the internal combustion engine.
Dr. Carr, I see you nodding your head a little bit there. Do you have anything to add on what Clinton has just said?
I agree with what Clinton mentioned. If you look last 3-4 months, the announcements made by our big three OEMs and also our provincial and federal governments, that they are all investing billions of dollars in building electric vehicles and batteries in Canada, especially in Ontario. And if you look at automotive industry, as Clinton mentioned, that GM is going to eliminate the use of gasoline engines, diesel engines in their passenger cars, SUVs within the next 15 years or so. But then Audi, Volvo, they are also moving towards almost phasing out gasoline engine vehicles. So this COVID-19 has been challenging. At the same time, we have seen the benefit of not driving, that significant reduction in pollution, right? So we see the benefit of driving zero-emission vehicles, that we drive usually where we live. So if we take the emission out of where we live, that is a significant boost for our health, right? So that's why, and there is other benefits there for to use electric vehicles. So we'll see them more and more showing up in showrooms and people buying them.
We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with our two guests, Clinton DeVoe. He is a writer on innovation and disruption, and Dr. Narayan Carr. He is a professor at the University of Windsor and the Canada Research Chair, specializing in electric vehicles. Very interesting discussion about the future of electric vehicles here in Canada and beyond. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, talking about electric vehicles, all things electric vehicles, and their connection to the Canadian economy with our two guests, Dr. Narayan Carr and Clinton DeVoe. Dr. Carr, maybe start with you on this second round here and talk a little bit. I think we are edging into this discussion, but clearly the automobile assembly and manufacturing sector is going to be altered by this development of electric vehicles becoming the basic default standard for automobiles. So where does Canada fit in? We've got these big plants in Oakville and the legacy plant of General Motors in Oshawa, Windsor, as you know. So where do we stand? Are we in a good footing for this?
If we take a step back, Windsor is the automotive capital of Canada. That's the way we say it. We are in Windsor because of our automotive background. In Windsor, we have Ford Motor Company, the Research and Development Center. We have Fiat Chrysler Automobile. Now it is Stellantis. University of Windsor Research and Development Center. We have nearly 100 auto and parts manufacturers in Windsor-Essex region. Then we are home to Canada's largest auto cluster. So that's why we are the automotive capital of Canada. And as a result, University of Windsor became the automotive university of the country. And we do significant automotive research. That means that we work with automotive OEMs, tier one suppliers, manufacturers and suppliers. And with respect to transitioning into electric vehicles, there will be a significant shift. We used to manufacture engine, we used to test engine. Now we'll be manufacturing electric motor, the electric engine. The controller of the motor will be manufacturing. Then putting all components together. For that, we need new assembly lines, right? But I think I can talk more about Windsor, that we have been a manufacturing city, and anything you give us, we will be able to manufacture. Just all we have to do is to transitioning towards this direction and redoing a lot of things, or the manufacturing process with some tweaking. We should be able to use our existing infrastructure to build all components, and putting all components together. Our OEMs can put all components together, assemble them together to build electric vehicles. We can see that our Fiat Chrysler Automobile, they're building plug-in minivan in Windsor. So we have the capability, and with some tweaking, we should be able to assemble electric vehicles in Canada, in Ontario, in Canada.
Sure. Clinton DeVoe, I'm going to be asking you about Alberta. Don't worry, because that was the start of our conversation about having this segment. But I just want to get your sense of, obviously, this is an Ontario-focused question about assembly and plants in Ontario. Do you agree with Dr. Carr, fairly optimistic that Canada is going to play a role in this?
I do. In fact, it goes beyond just an Ontario component of it. So if we look at the actual battery technology itself and the development of the battery technology, we could look at Halifax, Nova Scotia as just a quick example, where Tesla has worked together with Dalhousie University in order to develop what they call their Dalhousie Tesla Battery Lab. So a lot of that fancy technology that we're seeing on the road today, much of it was developed and created in Halifax. And if we look at other parts of Ontario, for example, Ottawa, There's a lot of technology occurring in Ottawa around the autonomous driving component of electric vehicles. And so I see a lot of that manufacturing technology development occurring in different parts of the country, actually simultaneously.
And it can be all part of a Canadian supply chain, Clinton?
Yeah, most definitely. I really believe that it can be. And I think as we delve further into this discussion, one of the things that the Canadian government, along with the various provincial governments, is they'll have to find a way to work together, in order to ensure that Canada and all parts of Canada can benefit from this impending, what I like to call a tsunami of electric vehicles, because we're seeing huge adoption rates in Europe and in Asia. And it's just a matter of time over the next 2 to 3 years before we see that work its way into our shores here in North America.
And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, with Dr. Narayan Carr. He is a professor at the University of Windsor and the Canada Research Chair pertaining to electric vehicles. And then we also have Clinton DeVoe. He is a writer on innovation and disruption. Clinton, I'm going to go to you because I was sort of setting us up for this discussion. You have some very interesting thoughts about the future of Alberta. One would automatically, I guess, assume without much knowledge that Alberta, tied to fossil fuels, might be seeing this as a kind of a death knell when electric vehicles come forward. But you have another take on it, and I'd love you to express it right here.
Yeah, so my take on this whole topic is that this is a huge benefit for Alberta. And the reason for that is because what Canadian and Canadian industry has discovered in recent years is that there are significant and large quantities of lithium in Alberta, specifically at oil sands operations. And what I've been arguing quite passionately over the last year or two is that oil sands operations, for all intents and purposes, are essentially mining operations. And so if they have these large quantities of lithium, I like to call it the recipe for electric vehicle batteries. We should be taking advantage of that lithium and using it in the manufacturing process and supply that global EV supply chain. And we see the same thing in Saskatchewan. And then, of course, if we look at other provinces like Manitoba, or if we look at the territories up north, we have significant nickel deposits. We have significant platinum and copper deposits. These are all what I like to call the ingredients that go into an electric vehicle battery. And so I think with the right planning and with the right sort of government regulations and those kinds of things, that we can sort of help move that industry along in a way that would benefit Canada's economy from coast to coast to coast.
Dr. Carr, I'd like to get your comments on this. Clinton has put forward this very interesting, hypothesis or argument that Alberta can really do well out of electric vehicles because of the inputs into batteries like lithium. Have you thought about this at all? What's your comment on it?
Clinton said it well. Alberta and other provinces, they have the ingredients. So if we can have access to those ingredients, and if we look at, I think yesterday I saw that in Quebec, they're investing about $100 million or so in battery technology development. See, if our provinces, and as Clinton mentioned, that federal government and the provinces work together, and battery development is one of the pain areas in electric vehicle development. So that could be a significant boost for us as a country towards developing electric vehicles ourselves. Because we have all the ingredients, we have the capability. And if we put our thoughts together, we have this multi-trillion dollar industry to tap into. We can tap into this. So there is a huge opportunity. But time window is very short because everyone is trying to catch this web. And this is an opportunity for us as well as a country.
Clinton, Dr. Carr said the window is short and perhaps closing. Are you starting to see signs of interest about these critical minerals and elements that can be part of this supply chain?
Yeah, so what we know for certain is that in recent months, we see a number of companies based in Saskatchewan and Alberta and other parts of the country that have figured out how to use things like lithium and actually to speed up the process from months into literally hours. The reason that's important is because we've seen the government of Canada as well as the White House in the United States over the last 45 days have started to talk about what they call a national or a North American Mineral Action Plan, which is sort of what I guess we're talking about here. And in order to really allow this to grow and to prosper, to take advantage of it, I think that we need to also look at the supply chain in regards to how to get these products to market. So it may be at some point, it may be a good idea for us to perhaps revisit Bill C-48 and C-69 in order to ensure that our supply chains are not interrupted, because there's nothing that could harm us more quickly than for Canada and for businesses in Canada to set up these deals with the various battery manufacturers, the various automotive manufacturers, and then to have that supply chain get interrupted. It would very quickly seek out other sources around the globe if Canada is not able to meet that.
Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, as always, and we're continuing our discussion about the future of electric vehicles and basically the Canadian economy therein as well. Dr. Carr, you mentioned earlier in your presentation about some of the things that have been done. What are you looking for from the federal and provincial governments when it comes to supporting this industry? Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are as we move into the budget season.
I mean, our federal and provincial governments, they are investing. Recently, I have been awarded a couple of large projects with Ford Motor Company, Magna, Nimac, D&V Electronics, gallium nitrides. So they're all into electrification, and we have been developing electric motors and motor controllers for electric vehicles. And so the research support from the federal government has been excellent. We would like to see that towards electrification, the federal government support to our industry partners. I mean, funding is coming to the university. That's excellent. I would like to see that funding goes toward industry partners as well, so that they can build capacity at their end, so that our engagement with the industry would be more fruitful. Because we need to, I mean, at university, we create people for future, but at the same time, in order to have effective collaboration, our industry partners needs to be well informed in this area as well. And for that, without government support, it is difficult for industry to channel resources and personnel in this new area. So I would like to see our government, both federal and provincial, are providing more support to our industry partners.
Clinton DeVoe, what should the appropriate role of government be? Should it be to subsidize? Should it be to get out of the way? What's your take on this?
Well, for the record, I'm someone that generally believes that governments work best when they kind of allow the market to sort of operate on its own. With that being said, it will be difficult or complicated in order for Canada to really benefit if we have 10 sets of provincial regulations when it comes to things like mining regulations, plus territory regulations, and then plus the federal government sort of overlaps on top of that. So I think one of the things that Canada could do is we could look at the investment sector, where we have essentially one body where Canadians can buy and sell stocks and retirement savings and those kinds of things. So I think it's imperative for the federal government and the provincial government to find a way to create one set of seamless regulations that would allow this sort of thing to be expedited and allow it to sort of transition quickly and to move quickly. Otherwise, the industry will look to other parts of the world that are able to move these market forces along more quickly.
Very quickly, Clinton, do you expect anything to come out of the discussions with the Biden administration on this file?
Well, I do. I'm in the minority in this, but I do think that we're going to see this move along, and the reason is that the United States understands that in order to maintain its global dominance as a world leader in economics and trade and commerce and those kinds of things, that it really needs to start moving quickly when it comes to the electric vehicle field. And I think the fact that the president, with his first meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, that they put that on the table right away.
Right.
And they said they wanted to make that a priority. That leads me to believe that there's a lot of sort of backroom discussions going on.
Sure.
And I'm sure, Tony, with some of your background, you're familiar with how governments will communicate with each other sort of behind the scenes before they go public.
And unfortunately, I feel we've just scratched the surface, but we are out of time. I want to thank both of our guests, Clinton DeVoe and Dr. Narayan Carr, for a very interesting discussion. It's clear that we're going to have to revisit this in the near future. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I meant it when I said we just scratched the surface there. As you could tell, this is a very interesting discussion. Lots happening very quickly that has a huge impact on the Canadian economy. So expect a return visit in the future. Thanks for joining us here today.